Today, businesses are hurting after one of the biggest ransomware attacks in history. The hackers apparently want $70 million to reverse the damage. Jeff Bezos is no longer the CEO of Amazon. Today, he officially hands over the reins to Andy Jassy. And the Chinese regime bans ride-hailing app Didi from its app store in China. What's behind the move? That and much more, coming up at NTD Business. Good evening and great to have you with us. We hope you're enjoying the long weekend. I'm Paul Graney. Tyson Foods is recalling 8.5 million pounds of frozen chicken over contamination fears. The CDC issued a food safety alert because of a listeria outbreak in Tyson chicken products. The statement says the products were made at a plant in Missouri between December 2020 and April 2021. The products were then shipped nationwide. They're in the form of fully cooked chicken strips, diced chicken, chicken wing sections, and even fully cooked pizza with chicken. Not all products were sold under the Tyson brand name, though. The CDC recommends throwing the products away or returning them and washing any surfaces that touch the products. Listeria can survive in refrigerators. Has an airport ever lost one of your bags and you had to go through the hassle of getting it back again? Well, airlines now say that's not going to happen as often anymore. Here's NTD's Evelyn Lee with the details.
Now that international travel is picking up again, so might the number of delayed bags. But people in the airline industry say there might be a solution.
We prefer the term delayed rather than lost. In terms of the numbers of bags that are delayed, it's actually very, very small.
Peter Drummond is the director of baggage at SITA, which specializes in air transport communications. He says that not even 0.04% of bags globally are delayed. But if it happens, it's very expensive for the airline and it has a large impact on the customer. Jen Ruiz agrees. She's a frequent traveler and says airlines lost her bags multiple times.
I followed up with the airline and they didn't have any record of any claim that had been filed, even though I had gone in person at the airport and filed a claim with the agent. So I had to start from scratch.
Drummond says that the main reason for delays is complex plane and airport transfers. During a trip, passengers may have 10 different touch points. That doesn't just include airlines, but also government, ground handlers, and at least 2 airports. Now IT firms are working on solutions so these points can communicate better.
I think the main thing that can resolve this is really having more data. So having more information about where bags are.
This could make it easier to track bags across multiple steps in the journey. Air Canada says it's all about presenting that data to the right people at the right time. In fact, this type of data collecting and sharing is not new, but people in the industry hope that this technology will be able to identify problems even before they occur and improve customer experience.
You can order your bag to be picked up from your home location, and the next time you see that bag would be at the airport on arrival.
And going a step further, the passenger might even be able to pick up the bag at the final destination, like the hotel. Evelyn Lee, NTD News.
And today, Jeff Bezos officially stepping down from his role as CEO. He founded Amazon on this day 27 years ago. Since then, Bezos has become one of the richest people in the world. We've known about his plans to step aside since the company's annual shareholder meeting in May. Now Bezos will hand the reins over to Andy Jassy. He's been at Amazon for nearly 25 years and was, till today, running Amazon Web Services. Bezos says Jassy will be an outstanding leader. Bezos himself, though, won't be out of the picture just yet. He'll still be Amazon's executive chair, where he says he'll focus his energy and attention on new products and early initiatives. And Facebook, Google, and Twitter could stop offering their services in Hong Kong. The companies say they're concerned over the city's proposed crackdown on malicious sharing of personal data, or so-called doxing. That's where private information such as real names and addresses is revealed online without permission. New proposed laws in Hong Kong could make the tech giants liable when their users post such information. A group representing the firms has sent a letter to city officials saying their staff could be at risk of severe sanctions if that happens, and warns that the only way to avoid it would be to stop offering their services in the city. Hong Kong reportedly proposed illegal changes following the 2019 protests there, when police officers were said to face doxing. And inside mainland China, the communist regime is cracking down on its largest ride-hailing app, Didi, and 2 other companies. They've been banned from the app stores there just after all three went public in the US last month. NTD's Olin Richards has the details.
Chinese ride-hailing giant Didi says its revenues could take a hit after regulators banned the app from app stores in China. The Chinese regime says Didi violated laws by illegally collecting and using personal information. This comes just less than a week after Didi went public on the New York Stock Exchange, and Chinese regulators announced an investigation into the app. Didi said Monday it didn't know anything about the investigation before its $4 billion New York listing. It also says it's working to make changes to its app to comply with rules. Two other U.S.-listed Chinese firms are also down and under investigation, including a truck-hailing app and a recruitment app. The Chinese regime is trying to tighten control of the vast amount of data companies collect every day. A new law passed in June says companies found mishandling data could be fined, have their licenses revoked, or even forced to stop operation. Didi has 377 million active users in China alone. Bloomberg reports some projections show that China will hold a third of the world's data by 2025. That's a stark reminder from a country that routinely uses technology to suppress its own population to advance its own causes. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
And it's not just big businesses in China targeted by authorities. It's not even just Chinese businesses. Stephen Scherer is a young San Francisco entrepreneur who was arrested in Beijing in 2016 and imprisoned for just under a month. They eventually deported him. He recounts horrible experiences in his new book, Surviving Chinese Communist Detention, where he says he did nothing wrong. So I asked Scherer, what reason did the police give him for holding him?
So what I was formally charged with after about a full day in a holding facility was illegal employment, and that was the formal charge. But what was very odd was when I was detained and went through hours of interrogations by myself is the Chinese police routinely referenced the amount of money I made. So they would look at my tax documentation, and one of the odd questions I got from the Chinese police, and I wrote about this in the book, was they kept saying, do you know how much money you make in the country? And I said, yes. I mean, I have my tax documentation right here. I do everything legally. I'm here above board. I have a legal alien permit, legal work visa. And they said, well, do you know how much we make? And I said, no, I don't understand where the connection is between those two things. And then the kind of implication from that line of questioning over and over and over again was, you as a foreigner should not be making more than a domestic Chinese national. And that was kind of the logic of the interrogation for a good chunk of the discussion.
Here in the States, if you get arrested for anything, there's due process, right? You get some options, you get to call a solicitor, call a friend, et cetera, et cetera. What kind of options did they give you?
Yeah, so this was large impetus behind my decision to write the book, was that there wasn't really a point of reference here in the West. And this is coming from, I'm a dual US and Swiss citizen. So when I spoke to people in Western Europe or in the United States, North America really, and I shared my story, there wasn't a point of reference. People would often ask, well, hey, why didn't you call an attorney, as if that were an option, not understanding that we're talking about a country, according to Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch, that kills more of its own citizens every single year than the rest of the world combined. And so we're talking about a country where Falun Gong practitioners, Chinese Christians, Muslim Uyghurs, political dissidents, human rights attorneys are routinely detained, tortured, and executed. So there is no due process, there is no phone call, there is no bail, there are no Miranda rights, no human rights organizations. There is nothing in terms of judicial process to help you as a mechanism to defend yourself once you're detained. It's an overnight abduction. You're thrown into a cage, you're carted around and forced to undergo a litany of odd and strange medical tests against your will before being thrown into a black site prison cell where all of your belongings are taken from you, and you are essentially at the extreme end of what is now becoming common here in the United States, which is cancel cultured, but to the point where you are abducted and disappeared by the government and you no longer exist.
You were running your own business at the time in Beijing. I believe it was going quite well for you. You want to take us through how things changed for you, this change of environment and change of situation? How did it make you feel?
Yeah, so I went from living right outside of the kind of cosmopolitan district of very central Guomao in Beijing, and I was living a pretty decent life. I was able to kind of, run a company. I had my friends, I had my network, I had my, own business. And it was a very kind of proud accomplishment. And I went from that to essentially being told to get into a cage. And the book goes into more depth about what that process was like after hours of interrogation, after being falsely accused. And then haphazardly, you're thrown into utter chaos. I was thrown into a prison cell with 17 other inmates, and glossing over the extreme violence and, in some cases, very sad mental instability of some of the inmates, as there is no system of mental health care in China to help those individuals. You're locked in a cage 24 hours a day. You don't get the hour of sunlight. You are locked in there with 17 other inmates. You're sleeping on kind of frozen wooden planks with blood-stained blankets. You are sharing a single squatter toilet, and then you're eating essentially yellow sludge out of a communal trough. There's a bucket where this kind of sludge is poured through the metal bars and into a bucket, and 17 inmates share that. You're forcibly sleep deprived. You're heavily malnourished. I was routinely pulled out of my prison cell by guards to translate for other foreign inmates who had stopped eating. And again, these conditions are designed to kill you. There are suicide warning signs plastered on the wall. It's incredibly dangerous, and you see people literally kind of disappear or lose their mind or suffer horrendously in a number of different ways every single day.
Stephen Scherer. And businesses from around the world are still struggling after a massive cyber attack Friday. Hackers are reportedly demanding $70 million after executing one of the biggest ransomware attacks ever. NTD's Phil Zhou has the latest.
Hackers are demanding $70 million to restore data after a supply chain attack on software provider Kaseya. That's according to Reuters.
What the federal authorities are very, very confident it was the REvil group, which is, it's not state affiliated with Russia. So, they don't believe it's the Russian quote unquote government.
Hundreds of companies could be affected directly according to CNET, and at least 36,000 companies are already indirectly impacted.
These are people that they have small businesses, they employ 10 to 30 people, and this is serious for them.
The co-founder of cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike tweeted, "This is without a doubt going to turn out to be the biggest, most destructive ransomware campaign that we've seen so far." Giant Swedish grocery chain The Coop had to close all 800 of its stores.
We started as usual today. We were going to use TeamPlot internal system, but it ended with the decision that we couldn't open the store, so we had to keep the store closed.
The hackers demanded the $70 million ransom on a dark web blog known to be used by REvil, Russia-linked cyber criminals behind the attack on JBS meat processors.
It's a worldwide hacker affiliate or hacker associate, if you will, that has people all around the world.
The FBI is now investigating the case. Phil Zhou, NTD News.
And a federal judge in Ohio is overruling part of a recent pandemic spending bill that prevented states from cutting taxes. The judge ruled that last week that the so-called tax mandate provision in the American Rescue Plan is unconstitutional. He issued a permanent injunction barring its enforcement. The provision basically prohibited states from using federal pandemic relief funds to offset tax cuts or credits. The decision came in a lawsuit brought by Ohio's Attorney General against the Treasury Department. The Republican argued that Congress exceeded its constitutional authority by including the tax mandate provision in the pandemic relief bill. The judge agreed, arguing that the provision is too vague. The Treasury Department, though, will likely appeal the ruling. And the new West Virginia law eliminates sales tax on all small firearms and ammunition. Means customers can now purchase most handguns, shotguns, and rifles tax-free. The law is also designed to encourage gun and ammunition manufacturing in the state by giving tax credits to arms and ammunition makers. One company already planned to build an ammunition plant in the state because of it. Virginia State lawmaker Gary Howell says the law makes West Virginia the best place to manufacture arms and ammunition. The law is one of many that have been enacted by states in recent months. Republicans and gun rights groups have warned that Democrat politicians want laws that make it harder to purchase or own a firearm. And Morrisons in the UK has agreed to a takeover bid led by SoftBank-owned Fortress Investment Group. Values Britain's fourth largest supermarket chain at $8.7 billion. Fred Katamaya reports.
Morrisons may soon get a new owner. SoftBank-owned Fortress Investment Group agreed on Saturday to take over the British retailer for $8.7 billion. The American investment management firm teamed up with Canada Pension Plan Investment Board and Koch Real Estate Investments to bid for Britain's fourth-largest supermarket chain. That offer tops an unsolicited $7.6 billion bid from the U.S. private equity firm Clayton, Dubilier & Rice. Morrisons rejected CD&R's offer last month, saying it was far too low. Shareholders get to vote on Fortress's offer, which is lower than what one of Morrisons' leading investors, J.O. Hambro, asked for last week. Private funds find British supermarket groups attractive because they generate cash and own property. Under British takeover rules, CD&R has until July 17th to come back with an offer. The firm had no immediate comment. Morrisons has a partnership agreement with Amazon.com, which owns the upscale supermarket chain Whole Foods. Analysts speculate that Amazon, as well as other private equity firms, could emerge as possible bidders.
Still to come this evening. Universal Studio takes the top 3 at the box office over the weekend. Which movies were the most popular? And in the mountains of Morocco, cooperatives employ women to make what's known as liquid gold. What is it and how is it improving these women's lives? That and more after this short break.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm going to pass the savings directly on to you. For example, you get my 6-piece towel sets, regular $109.99, now only $44.98, or MyPillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
The wait is finally over. Shen Yun returns to the stage with an all-new production filled with beauty, majesty, and a powerful message of hope. Discover the lost culture of ancient China. Discover this season, Shen Yun 2021.
Coming to the Palace Theater, July 24th and 25th. Tickets at shenyun.com/Stanford, 888-90-SHOWS.
Welcome back. The president hosted a party and fireworks display at the White House yesterday. It was a stark contrast from last year's celebrations, or lack thereof. NTD's Con Fredrickson has more.
Hosting the biggest event of his presidency so far, Joe Biden held a barbecue and fireworks display at the White House. About 1,000 people attended the party, including military families and pandemic response workers.
245 years ago, we declared our independence from a distant king. Today, we are closer than ever to declaring our independence from a deadly virus.
Later, he watched the annual fireworks display from the White House balcony with the First Lady. Guests at the White House were not required to have vaccines or wear a mask. And unlike with other recent holidays, the White House encouraged Americans to go out and celebrate.
And the first cruise to set sail in the U.S. in 15 months has returned after a 7-day trip. The Celebrity Edge docked in Port Everglades in Fort Lauderdale on Saturday. Passengers had traveled to Mexico and the Bahamas. The ship sailed at less than 40% capacity, though, to allow for social distancing. 13 unvaccinated children on board were tested for the virus before arrival and all tested negative. The cruise line says the rest of the passengers and crew were fully vaccinated. It was a national holiday weekend in the U.S., but the box office was universal. The studio had the top 3 movies in theaters, and here's David Daniel with early estimates for the weekend top 5.
This reminds me of the spa back at the hotel.
Really?
Not at all.
The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard landed in 5th place, taking in $3 million. A Quiet Place Part 2 fell to 4th with $4.2 million, giving it $146 million domestic. The Forever Purge began its run in 3rd place with $12.7 million, the weakest debut in franchise history.
Oh, Tina, you little klepto. Nighty-night, maniac.
The Boss Baby Family Business opened in 2nd place. The animated sequel made $17.3 million. F9 The Fast Saga downshifted by about 2/3 from its massive debut, but stayed on top for a second weekend with ticket sales of $23.8 million. In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
F9 is just the 3rd movie since the pandemic began to top $100 million domestic after Quiet Place Part 2 and Godzilla vs. Kong. In a little village in southern Morocco, a group of women produce what's known as liquid gold. The oils become highly prized in the beauty industry, and an increase in demand internationally is helping improve Moroccan women's lives. NTD's Jessica Beatty has the story.
In the mountains of Morocco, a group of local women harvest argan oil, also known as liquid gold. It's long been used for cooking, but now it's also highly prized by the global beauty industry as an anti-aging and hair treatment.
There is a significant increase in the demand for these products at the international level.
Most argan oil is produced by local women's cooperatives. The oil is extracted by drying argan fruit in the sun, peeling and smashing it, then grinding the kernel with stones. And it's been this way for centuries, although new machines help speed up the work. Zara Haki works for a cooperative called Tate Matin. It means sisters, and she says she's happy to work there.
Thank God we have health insurance. Our children study at the cooperative's kindergarten. We work, but we also have fun and sing together.
The co-op's president says with the increase in demand, it was able to achieve many goals, including the development of women in the countryside.
Women can work more comfortably. There is a kindergarten and women can bring their children. There is also combating illiteracy programs, job training, and health insurance coverage, which is the most important thing. It was not available for women before.
The head of the Village Development Group says it was one of the first cooperatives launched in Morocco, and it's helped improve the workers' living conditions. The oil now costs up to $200 a gallon locally, but internationally it can sell for up to $1,000 per gallon, making it one of the most expensive oils in the world. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
That's the latest business updates for today, but you can still catch NTD Evening News with Stephanie Cox. That starts at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. For NTD Business, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
We have a new channel. Subscribe to us on YouTube at NTD News. Get the highlights of our news broadcast and the most important headlines that we curate especially for you.
Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content, and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.